Hi guys, Jamie from Boxing Life and welcome back to the channel. And today I've got a film study for you guys on Bakhram Murtazaliev. He's a very interesting fighter because, just from some of the fights I've watched in preparation for this film study to show you guys, he has quite a hybrid style. Obviously he's from Chechnya in Russia, and he moved over to America in 2016 in his early 20s, I believe. And I think he's definitely picked up a lot of American influences, but he still has those kind of Soviet style techniques that he uses from time to time. But he's kind of a hybrid, I'd say, for sure. He's not one or the other. And I think that's what makes him very interesting. And he's also not perfect either. He makes a lot of mistakes himself. However, he kind of makes the most of it. I also just think he's a very intelligent fighter as well, in terms of picking up habits and reading his opponent. I think he's very good at that. And I guess in today's film study, I'm going to look at kind of 3 fights just to kind of show you this in action. And obviously, I want to start off with probably his kind of breakout fight, which was against Tim Tszyu. This is how he's kind of been given that dark horse label of the 154-pound division. And I think he could be a real threat going forward. I'm not going to lie. I think like I said, the fact that he picks up little habits is really telling. And I think he could be a big problem in the future. But we'll look at this fight versus Tim Tszyu first. And obviously with Tim, he's coming off the back of that loss with Fundura. And, this was probably a fight they thought they were going to win pretty comfortably. But one thing about Bakhram Murtazaliev in terms of the game plan in this fight, I think there was an element of, wanting to box Tim, knowing that Tim is quite an aggressive boxer puncher. He likes being on the front foot. He likes applying that pressure and landing his bigger shots on you. He's not so good going backwards. And I think in terms of Murtazaliev, I think they kind of wanted to hold their ground a little bit with him, box him, but also be aggressive with their counter punches. As obviously, if you've watched this fight before, you'll know how devastating he was. And I think that was a big part of the fight. It was about enticing Tim Tszyu in and picking up on his habits. And they did an excellent job in terms of exploiting Tim. And Tim obviously didn't help himself at times, but it was a great performance from Murtazaliev, I'm not going to lie. Now, one of the things I will say as a criticism for me around Murtazaliev is, sometimes it works in his favor, sometimes it doesn't. And I think against better guys, they're going to exploit him if he uses this too much, in my opinion. But he does use this high guard, as you can see, quite often. He used it well in this fight in terms of being able to draw out attacks from Tim Tszyu and then counter back. And it would take the sting off a lot of Tim's shots as well. And maybe there was an element of thinking, Tim is a pretty decent puncher. There's no point opening up too much early in the fight. And yeah, it was just having a bit more of a tighter guard and protecting himself in that respect. And as you can see here as well, I think he's got a fairly decent jab in terms of the intelligence behind it. It's more of a probing tool, in my opinion. He does kind of throw it with power from time to time, but he definitely uses it intelligently in terms of blinding his opponent and also setting up his backhand. Now, this is another point. If you look at his footwork in this position, and it's kind of a criticism. You can see he's got quite a bladed stance. He's right in the line. Tim's obviously in the high guard here. But a thing I've noticed about Murtazaliev is he will throw these lead right hands sometimes wildly. He'll throw really wide shots at times for whatever reason. And I think it's mainly to help him get around guards and go into the body, and it helps. But sometimes he squares up, as you can see here. Very vulnerable position against, a potential guy that's a very good counterpuncher. I think someone like Xander Zayas or Boots Ennis would be able to catch him out if he was to do that too often. And definitely something to consider. You can see here him just using that jab to Tim's high guard. And he likes kind of just leaving it out there to give him the ability to, you know, he just frames off there. But just gives him the ability to blind his opponent. And also set up his other shots, which we'll see soon. And you can see it's like he's trying to entice Tim in, even in these early rounds, with the jab and also just with this high guard. And his footwork, you can see that kind of pendulum step, you know, to get out of range, you can see here. But instead of bouncing back in, he kind of is a bit more flat-footed. And he does like to pivot out and change position. And I think in the case of this fight, it was more about not letting Tim, you know, get set in his punches. He kind of makes the mistake here. He's not kind of fully set. He's stepped over. And Tim's able to time him with that jab. So like I said, he makes mistakes. And this is a nice, you know, he's kind of gone for the guard now. Comes back with the right hand. And this is another thing I really like about Murtazaliev, is he tends to finish with another jab. He'll do a 1-2-1 combination quite often. We just watch it. 1, 2, 1. Now it doesn't connect here, but you'll see later in this fight, if you haven't watched it already, how dangerous it can be, that combination. And I don't know, I feel like you don't really see guys finishing off with a jab that often, in my opinion. I think it's very rare you see like this, you know, Tim throwing the jab, like a jab overhand right. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Murtazaliev takes the sting off it with the guard and also moving his body position onto that back leg to kind of take the sting off that punch. But instead of like throwing an up jab, you know, Tim would rather throw the left hook. You know, and most guys, like we just saw there. And most guys usually do that in kind of more, I guess, Western influences. Whereas I feel a lot of the Soviet guys, they like to finish off with a jab. And maybe in the case of this fight, I don't, like, obviously I'm going to show you some other fights. He doesn't always just throw this double flicker jab, but maybe it's a habit to exploit. And you can see here, he kind of did back off at one point, and it did allow Tim to kind of get into position and throw that right hand, you know, and, you know, actually does a good job going to the body. But Murtazaliev, you know, he does a good job blocking. You can see he is probably trying to block that left hook to the body, but he does just get caught a little bit. But then he comes straight right back as well from with his left hook, sorry, to Tim's midsection. And I think that actually hurt Tim in that moment. And this is a very beautiful shot from Murtazaliev. Really intelligent. Now you can see here Tim throws that jab, the cross, but this time Murtazaliev slips off the line. And as you can see here, there's a massive opening for that body shot. And he's not going to get the most power behind it. His weight's just transferring onto that. He's kind of on his heel. He's in an awkward position because he's slipped with that high guard. And he is actually kind of not square, but because Tim's fully committed with that right hand, it's kind of put him in an awkward position, but he's still able to get that body shot with the left hook. Really nice shot. We'll just watch that again. It's jab, overhand right, misses the shot because Murtazaliev slips out to his left, but that creates the opening for the body shot for the left hook. Really nice shot. And I believe this is the knockdown coming. Yep. So Tim overcommits with that jab. And as we've seen already, he's been throwing this hard jab and this overhand right constantly. And he kind of, you know, Murtazaliev takes the sting off it. But he knows what's coming. He's picked up in this habit. Once again, you know, Tim's doing it again. Trying to land something of significance. And, you know, he Murtazaliev just misses with the right hand. Could have been a real bad shot. And you can see here, Tim makes the massive mistake. He kind of telegraphs his left hook, and then he opens himself wide open. You can see here, and Murtazaliev just has to time it perfectly. Really good shot. Bang, right in the button. And it just comes down to Tim telegraphing that shot. You know, he was too predictable with it, standing in range. And, you know, that jab overhand right wasn't really working for him, so he had to find another way to attack, didn't he? You know, he takes no prisoners, does he, Murtazaliev, in these positions, and he throws really wide. And obviously, Tim's very hurt at this point. Tries to throw that overhand right, and Murtazaliev just has to time him as he finishes the right hand, because he's kind of put himself in that position after. He's not rolled. And this is where you're kind of seeing Murtazaliev using these straight shots. You know, using the jab not as a way to hurt him, but as a way to blind him, distract him, and kind of bring his guard down. Lands the right, and now, because he's transferred that weight over through to the right hand, you know, look where his weight is on that lead front foot, and he's completely loaded up now with this punch to get him. Bang. Just beautiful shot. Really, really incredible. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that film study on Bakhram Murtazaliev. As you can tell, he is quite a unique fighter after all. If you guys want the full 40-minute film study, it is available on my Patreon. You can also get access to lots of other exclusive content just like this. And if you want to request a film study, you can sign up to the Champ tier level membership and ask me to cover whatever boxing topic you want. Or why not check out one of these two videos? As always, this has been Jamie from Boxing Life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.